the Northwest home for paranormal, you're listening to U.S. Phenomenon with your host, Mario Magana.
From the Pacific Northwest in the shadow of the 1962 World's Fair, this Space Needle, this is U.S. Phenomenon, and I am your host, Mario Magana. Are we living in a real-life simulation? Tonight, we will discuss two of the most craziest topics. A former president almost assassinated, and a sitting president steps down as the nominee for the Democratic National Party. Our guests tonight, who have covered topics that cover counterculture to pop culture, nothing's off the table. He can be heard on your favorite podcasting platform. And he is Michael Parker Media. We welcome him back to the show. Our second guest is a New York-based writer, author, of Pale Horse Rider, a book about Bill Cooper, a movie about American Gangster, and a TV show called Taxi, which I got to ask him more about because I think as a kid watching reruns, I have to say that may have been one of my favorite shows. Probably inappropriate for someone of the younger generation to be watching, but he's also worked for Rolling Stones, New York Times, The New Yorker, The Inquirer, National Geographic. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show two of my favorite individuals, Michael Parker and Mark Jacobson. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Hey, man.
Greetings.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How you guys doing? Oh, wow. I'm not even on camera. Come on. How's that? There we go.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm fine. I'm in Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Well, this is great. I mean, under the circumstances, typically it's very strange. And yes, this is a conspiracy show. We try to cover all the topics. I've been on a hiatus, trying to enjoy some of my summertime. And guys, has it been the craziest couple of weeks in regards to what's been going on in regards to almost having a former president assassinated live on television, to then having a former president step down and say, "Hey, I'm going to step down and for what he thinks is for the better for the country." Guys, let's start with last week. Let's talk about the assassination attempt on former President Donald J. Trump. Guys, this is crazy. I know there are some conspiracies that are rolling around out there, loosey-goosey stuff. There may be even talks about those maybe stepping down. For those who are watching us live on stream, you're welcome to send us messages. We will take and post your comments online, so you can do that as well. It is available on Twitch, YouTube, if we haven't been banned yet. That could happen because anything's possible nowadays. These are private entities, and Lord knows, let's try to keep it PG-13. Let's talk about the attempted assassination. We're talking about someone that tried to take out Trump last week. Wild times. I mean, I didn't think that I've ever seen anything like this. And the last time this has happened, what was Reagan, right? That was the last attempt someone tried to take out even a sitting president at that point, right?
That's true. He's the last one. But it used to happen quite frequently before then.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but that shouldn't be normal, right, guys? I mean, this is.
But it's completely normal in this country. What are you talking about? I mean, they have like 1/3 of all. I think I was reading the other day. 1/3 of all the presidents who've ever been presidents have either been shot at or killed. I mean, it's not that unusual.
Okay.
Well, I think that I read somewhere the other day. I mean, the Reagan assassination attempt is the one we remember. That was 1981, I believe. But I don't know if there have not been attempts that we haven't heard about. Because
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
I,
That's
because
absolutely true.
I think that may have been some during the Obama administration, and honestly, there probably have been attempts. They just didn't make the news because the only way one's going to make the news is when something happens like this.
Okay, so when you look back at it, okay, so there were four sitting presidents that were assassinated. So you have Abraham Lincoln, you have James Garfield, yep,
JFK.
JFK,
and
McKinley, right?
McKinley. Yes, McKinley is actually a funny one because he was the president. No, is that Cleveland? Who was the president, then he lost and he ran again. But that's not. If it was McKinley, you'd have a president, right? But in any event, Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried to kill him, and then the mayor of Chicago stepped in front of him and took the bullet and died. I mean, there've been a lot of these things. It's not that unusual. Gerald Ford, remember him? He was one of Charlie Manson's people tried to kill him.
Squeaky Fromm.
Squeaky Fromm. That's it. You win the prize, Squeaky Fromm.
I have all of these little pieces of pop culture trivia that I can remember, but nothing of value.
How do you get rid of all this stuff that's crammed into your brain? I don't know.
But I can't remember important things. But
like where your keys are.
Exactly. What's crazy to me about the whole situation that took place last week, the allegations of this guy being on the roof for such a long time, talking to other people who may be supporters regardless. And I get it. I know that most Democrats aren't gun-toting people, but people said, well, there may have been more people taking guns, but within the perimeter, like you're going through metal detectors. So I'm assuming you're not taking firearms into the perimeter, but them saying that this guy had been sitting on a roof for a certain amount of time, and why he was on this roof for such a long time and not taken out, it just seems to me it smells like doesn't smell good. I mean, it really looks bad for the Secret Service.
Well, I mean, it's a puzzler for sure. Plus, he's already out of the news by now. The news cycle is such that you're just done with him, right? Which is kind of strange because, I don't want to get into the major topic of the thing, but I predicted that this election cycle would have 3 acts, just like a regular movie. And I think we're coming into the second act now, so there's plenty more to go. And I think a lot more stuff may happen.
Yeah. Michael, what's your thoughts on a situation like this? Are you feeling like this is more as Mark is talking about? Do you think there are different, like, where are you lying with all this right now, with all this information? It is just moving rapidly right now.
Well, I did a show on the assassination attempt a couple of days ago with a guy who was a former asset of the Secret Service. And look, I'll tell you straight up. I mean, I think this was inevitable. This type, I found it very hollow for people to call for, turning down the rhetoric when they've spent probably 6 to 7 years demonizing this man and talking about how he was Hitler and this, that, and the other thing. And then all of a sudden they want to turn down the rhetoric. That rang very hollow to me. And the other thing that I've got to say about this is the minute that Trump became president, people that I knew were talking about assassinating him, which, look, I don't like Biden, but I wish him no ill will. Nor do I like the Clintons. I never wished anything on them. And these people are like holding up the man's head, calling for his assassination frequently. And Mark, don't look at me like that. This is true. And this was repeatedly. It was horrible. It was just freaking hideous. So this was inevitable. Now, the next thing, it was a deep state hit. That kid was always going to be the patsy. Always. This morning on Maria Bartiromo's show, Ron Johnson is already talking about what I talked about several days ago. The minute this thing happened, my wife and I were watching. I said, look, there's probably going to be multiple shooters. It's going to be blamed on this kid. Right now, they're saying he's Antifa. Tomorrow, we'll wake up and they're going to say that he was a right-wing extremist. So what do we hear? He's a 20-year-old registered Republican. His parents have since said that he had no political leanings. You're telling me that a 20-year-old kid was able to go to Home Depot, grab a ladder, grab this AK-47 or whatever it is, 50 rounds of ammunition, roll into this place. People on the grass saw the kid. They told local law enforcement. One local law enforcement went up onto the roof, saw the guy. The guy points a gun at him. He comes back down the ladder. They then radio that in further. I mean, this was a lapse of security that is of an epic level that really, they're saying that we're going to have an investigation. What I think will happen, and what I said on my show, is they're going to ultimately blame it on local law enforcement. That's what I think will happen.
Well, go ahead. I'm just taking all this in here, you know.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because
and it's not just me that's saying this. A lot of people are saying this. It's just common sense.
People saying a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
I think to me that when you start to look at the overall picture, of course, I know the three of us are not wishing ill will to any sitting president, former president. I know this group well enough to know that we ain't we ain't going down that road. But let's get back to there were some failures. Maybe, I mean, we're talking on epic proportions, it sounds like. I mean,
well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, most conspiracy theories, at the end of the day, when they get done signing it all up and figuring out who did what and the narratives begin to peter out, it always comes down to the same thing. And this is true of 9/11. It is true of like almost every conspiracy theory that I have covered. And believe me, I covered a lot of them. It comes down to incompetence on the level of that you can't really believe incompetence, because you know what you're saying, Mike. It's a nice story. I like it, but you know, I'm always a fan for any kind of conspiracy thing like this happened and that happened and this must have happened. But actually, these guys just screwed up. I mean,
no, they didn't. I refute that entirely.
I mean,
they didn't.
It's another one of those kind of things. Like, for all those things to happen that you just went through, we'd have to be like, you know, everything would have to be perfect.
No, you wouldn't. It wouldn't have to be. It would be understaffed. You would have the B team. Apparently, some members of the Secret Service didn't even show up for They didn't even show up for the on-site 9 a.m. meeting. I mean, look, you don't have to believe me. I don't really care. Well, I mean, that's the same excuse I've heard a bajillion times. Oh, you know, it was just incompetence. It wasn't malice. Well, no, man, this was a deep state hit that failed. I said from the get-go, there's going to be
deep state hit. What is that?
Oh, I'm sure that's what it was. And I said there's going to be.
Define that for me, because I'm not really familiar with this term.
What I'm saying, Mark, you're too smart for this. You're too smart for this. You are too smart for this. Look, they wanted to take this guy out.
Accountant from the IRS went in there and shot the guy. Who are you talking about?
Mark, they already, from the forensics, believe that there were multiple shooters on site. And this is not coming from me. This was on the mainstream press today. I mean,
I don't care what the mainstream, you know, it's like, you know.
Mark, listen. I don't want to hear any more of this about conspiracy theory. When it's pattern recognition. It's the same thing over and everybody knows what this was. This was a failed assassination of a president or a former president who's essentially probably going to win. I mean, look.
We'll see about that.
I mean, look, I don't know that that's going to happen for sure, but I think that there's a very strong possibility that would happen. And after you've done everything else, you play the final card. This was inevitable. It was a matter of time.
Has there been any investigation by any kind of meaningful law enforcement that supports any of the things that you're saying at the moment? I mean, do you think that
it happened a week ago, Mark? And it happened a week ago, Mark, and you know exactly how long these things take.
Crooked. I mean, is everything just fixed? Is that just the way it always is? All right. I mean, I'm just tired of this stuff. I mean,
Mark, I'm freaking tired of it as well. I'm extremely tired of it, and I am so beyond tired of it. But look, it is what it is. I mean, you're telling me this kid, they were so inept between local law enforcement and beyond the Secret Service. The woman said we couldn't place anybody on the roof because
Well,
it
if
was
you were
slow.
going to do this, wouldn't you get somebody better than a 20-year-old kid to do it for you? I mean, you're trying to.
That's
kill the
that's what
president of the
everybody
United
says. He was the
States.
guy that was always
You know,
intended to
I
be
mean-
the patsy.
I mean, does that make sense to you? I mean, really.
Everybody says that, but I think he was intended to be the patsy. And I will say this: if he was the only guy, then how did he get there? I
don't know. I mean,
how did so many things happen that would allow this person?
Question. Now, finally, you're asking a question that makes sense. How did he get there, and how did he stay there? So
He was allowed to be there. It's very simple. He was allowed to be there, and he most likely had
How many
assistance.
people were up there that are supposedly in on this plot that didn't happen to say anything?
Mark,
And they
all you
got-
have to do is let the
you have
kid in.
The whole gigantic. He's
Guy.
sitting up there for hours.
Mark,
with a
okay,
gun.
Mark,
I mean,
stop
come
it.
on.
Mark, all of these people who were supposed to be doing this job, why didn't they do the job? People saw the kid up there for
That's a
30
good
minutes. They
question,
told law
too.
enforcement, they told Secret Service. Nobody responded because
Look,
I mean, it's
I don't-
beyond logic.
I'm happy to. It's not just because I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. It just doesn't seem like the kind of thing that could be a setup. That's all. It was just a fluke. It just came out of nowhere.
I mean,
This kid. I mean, why can't they come up with a motive? Huh? Is this like? Let me ask you. Like, why haven't they come up with a motive yet? I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald. He's a good patsy. He used to be a commie. He's a drifter. He's a good patsy.
So you're
I mean-
saying that after 1 week, we should have already known why this kid did this?
We should know a few things. We don't know anything more than we did when it happened.
I think we may know a lot, and you're not being told. In the immediate days that this happened, the FBI was saying they couldn't get into his phone. Are you freaking kidding me?
So let's
Of
look.
course they
They
could get
already
into his
got
phone.
into-
Now
they
they're
got
saying
into his
that
phone.
they got into his phone and he was looking at pornography and a couple of other things. Yeah, what teenage
Like
kid was
everybody
not?
else, like
Wait,
everybody
yeah,
else.
it's
Guy,
come on, man.
I mean, he's looking at pornography. Does that make him a bad person? I mean,
No, and I'm saying
Makes him a
when they
teenager,
finally had
that's
to
what he is.
had to admit that of course they could get into the phone. What did they say? They said, well, he was looking at pornography and then he had a couple of offshore accounts. Well, those were probably VPNs, which anybody could get, which doesn't mean anything.
I know my buddy's trying to
so-
get a VPN because he got banned from his dating site. But, I mean, I get it. I mean, these are normal things that people are going to do. People have VPNs
Precisely.
to do a bunch of different things. Of course, we all know what George Carlin said a long time ago about assassination. This changes the narrative. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump, period, changes the narrative. He didn't get smoked out. He's truly lucky that this
He's the luckiest guy on earth.
right.
I'm not going to argue about that.
listen,
He
no,
is the luckiest man on earth.
So now the poll numbers change. Everyone, I mean, regardless, this makes Donald Trump likable, regardless if he's great or not. If anybody doesn't like this, changes the whole
You're saying
narrative.
it's a conspiracy theory in the other direction, Mario? Is that
That's what
you're
people
saying?
were saying from the get-go. People were saying on the day it happened that he faked it himself. Mark, surely you heard this. Come on, man.
That's the first thing I
There
thought.
have been-
Dude, come on. That was the first thing they said, that this was a hoax and that he faked it himself. People said that he faked it himself.
I can't believe this. This guy is unbelievable. But,
But
then I got a
again-
grip and my rational side of my brain took over and I began to realize that, well, how could Trump set this up and just get himself nicked in the ear? I mean, that's really just a little too close to
A lot of people said that, and a lot of people on the left said it.
I will say this, regardless on what happened.
It was trending. I mean, it was trending on social media. It wasn't like it was a secret.
I don't listen to Trump's social media, so I don't know anything about
Dude,
that.
it was on Twitter.
I don't know. I have Twitter. How about that? I'm a rebel. I don't have Twitter. I
So,
refuse to have it.
I
I won't
would
give
play-
Elon Musk a penny. All right, I'm not giving him 1 cent.
Well, it wasn't just on Twitter. It was on pretty much all social media, and people from the
Whenever-
get-go.
Whenever one of these gangsters own any of these these things, I'm not giving them any money.
But they're not the ones who are creating the content. The content is coming from the people that are on them. And all I'm saying is, I mean, even people that I know
Who's enabling them? Who's providing the service so they can say whatever they want to say, in this great democracy of ours, so you can say the stupidest things you can think of and put it up on social media.
That's another story. But
but it's like people like myself who go and we do these types of show that get us a strike on on a platform such as a YouTube or that's the only one. So at this point in time, for someone like myself who tries to keep the content down the middle and not go too crazy to the conspiracy.
I think we're going right down the middle here. He's on one side, I'm on the other side. So
well, not only that, what I'm saying is not exactly what I'm saying is
combination.
not exactly new. I mean, this is what everybody said from the get-go. So,
well, all right.
and
You're
here's the thing
informing
that-
me of something I didn't know. But the thing is that, like,
I mean, I did a show on this on.
My first feeling was this is a setup, and then I began to think a little clearly because I'm 76 years old. I lived through the John Kennedy assassination, the Robert Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, all these different things. And I've heard a million different things. And every single time there's a fall guy, and sometimes the fall guy takes the fall or not. So, okay, when you say he's the fall guy, it sounds like you're casting a play or something like that. So, I can't really.
I'm just calling it the way I see it.
I mean, hey, like Mike, I love you, and whatever you say, I'm willing to consider it. But it just, I'm telling you how it seemed to me.
Michael, let me ask you this: if this was what would be a complete failure on the Secret Service, well,
it is.
That's for sure. We agree on that.
And I'm telling you how that incredibly improbable that is.
So, regardless on the language that was used in regards to not having communications with the FBI, local law enforcement, having the perimeter secured, why they left him on top of on top of a roof for such a long time, someone has to pay. Someone in the Secret Service will have to step in.
I mean, we'll go back to the original question. Who benefits from the fact that Donald Trump was shot at and lived? I mean, it's Donald Trump, right?
Well, he was not supposed to live, and that's what I'm saying. So now Kim Cheadle, who's the head of the Secret Service, should have resigned literally that day.
I agree.
And Mayorkas should also resign. He has been an abysmal failure on so many levels. And
don't bring in other topics.
Dude, I'm going to. RFK asked for Secret Service coverage. The man's family he's had two people assassinated, and they declined. And finally, the day after this assassination attempt, they said, we're going to give RFK Secret Service detail. I mean, these people, if it's incompetence, it is criminal incompetence, and it's criminal that it has been allowed to continue.
Well, I would entertain that position, but the thing is that, like, the big plan thing, the overall plan, the kind of like push the button and the Illuminati go into
we got shit
doesn't fit this situation, man.
So, guys, I mean, we're looking at someone who was. I mean, if it really feels like this very strange, very tumultuous, regardless on what side of the fence you lie on. Well, we clearly know where you guys lie, but regardless on what side of the fence most people lie on, you have to
let me clear something up.
You finish.
I don't care. I'm sorry.
Let me finish. Regardless on what side of the fence you're on, I was like, damn, that's crazy. That is crazy. That is a former president was almost killed. My thoughts was, damn, this changes the narrative. If you're a Democrat, you have no chance in hell. No, I mean, your person was fumbling on the 1 yard line during a debate, and you are trying to get through a touchdown, and you know that for everything that every one of these Democrats, and look, I'm in a blue state, so I see a lot of this stuff going on. But a lot of people are saying, God, this doesn't look good for the party. That's what I'm hearing outside in regards to, but all of them said, damn, this sucks. This sucks big time because this changes the narrative for Democrats in regards to.
Tell me how you think it changed the narrative for Democrats.
Well, first and foremost, now all of a sudden you have your candidate who was fumbling during a debate, who couldn't answer these words, and then messes up during the UN. So you're continuing to go through this through a timeline, and you're watching your candidate continuing to fumble the football, recover it, get it, and keep moving forward. Not looking great for Democrats. All the way up to the point in time where then the assassination attempt happens. It's a whole new narrative. And now here we are in the middle of this book. We haven't even touched the next headline story. But in regards to what one party may think of how this assassination attempt goes, it's terrible, period. First and foremost, terrible on the part of the Secret Service, on the part of local law enforcement. That gentleman who was on the rooftop should not have been there. Now, if there were other shooters, we'll know that. If there was a grassy knoll, we're going to know about the grassy knoll. If we're going to know about the umbrella guy, we're going to hear about the umbrella guy. But those stories aren't.
There's no doubt about that. But the thing is that luckily for us, that these news cycles are so quick that I think this is yesterday's papers already. It's strange. I mean, to hear just, and Mike, you'll have to agree with this. I think. I mean, the idea that a guy has a very good chance of becoming the president was almost shot. And now that thing has been completely usurped in the news cycle by something else that happened. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen normally.
Today for a minute, but I want to circle back to something that I want to be very clear about.
In past tense.
I don't care if it was Donald Trump or if it were Hillary Clinton or if it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or anybody. I would be calling for an investigation of what happened, how did these security lapses occur? So I want to be clear about this. This isn't about Donald Trump. This is about anybody that's supposedly protecting the president of the United States. That is their job.
Yeah,
that is the thing they train for every day. And I find it incredibly difficult to believe that the amount of errors that could occur. Now, also, just one last thing I want to bring up on this is immediately a lot of people thought that there was someone shooting from the water tower. So this isn't just me. This isn't just coming out of my head. This is what a lot of people. This is what a lot of people said. And I mean, this was on mainstream news today. This was on Maria Bartiromo's show. They're going to have an investigation. How far it gets, I doubt it's going to get very far. Because it looks very bad for government departments. It looks FBI is supposedly going to investigate this. Man, I don't think so. Maybe. I hope they do. I hope that we get to the bottom.
I'm all for transparency. I mean, like the idea of covering stuff up is disgusting.
Right.
So, it's got to be done. And the woman, it's good that she should have resigned immediately. I agree with you completely. This is a major screw up, regardless of whatever the rationale for the person being up there and getting a clear shot and I think you probably know, an AR-15 type gun at that distance with a scope is kind of like, it's hard to miss, So because I've done it, I mean, a 223 bullet, I mean, the fact that didn't blow a guy's ear off, or at least the side of his head, is pretty amazing, But regardless of all those things, it's got to be looked into. And I agree with you totally, and it doesn't make a difference who it is. No. But I mean, one question I would ask, which I think you might actually be thinking about, is if a guy who's running for president is having a lot of rallies, for instance, and I'm not trying to besmirch Trump at all, he's running for president, so he has as many rallies as he should. But do they send the first team?
No, actually, it's very complicated. The show that I did on Tuesday goes through all of this. He would actually have a better security detail now than he did just last week. That's what's interesting, because there are levels of security detail that you get from the Secret Service.
That's what I would figure.
And not only did he have a reduced detail, but both Kamala and Jill were in town. So that pulled away some more people from the people that he was having to get. So what did they do? They supplemented it with just kind of on the spot guys. I mean, it's so incomprehensibly whatever the word is. It's just, I don't think that's the case. I mean, certainly there was some incompetence, but to that level, it's hard for me to believe. The other thing about this, that roof that kid was on, guess what? There were snipers inside the building. Yeah, you're telling me this
I'm
guy
reading about
that's
that.
been
You know,
walking
I mean,
around for an hour, that's been telling law enforcement that he's up there, that we're getting video of in real time. Meanwhile, the guy's inside. Nobody does anything.
They should have smoked him from the other angle. They should have smoked
It's very hard for me to
him.
figure
I
out.
agree with you. I agree with you that
Yeah.
I just don't see it. You know, like to put it together like that. I mean, how come? I mean, I don't want to cut my own throat off because I've written about this a million times, but how come none of these things nobody ever comes forth and spills the entire beans, you know? I mean, it just never happens, you know? So I've come to the conclusion after all these years that there are just some things that are just mysteries. Like I would assume that everybody in the world would admit that the crime of the century, of the 20th century, was the killing of John Fitzgerald Kennedy in front of like who knows how many hundreds of witnesses, you know, and still they can't figure out who did it. That is a mystery. That is not necessarily
Because I think it incriminates a system that stands nothing to gain by telling the truth. And if you want to tell the truth, well, we've got a place for you too.
Let me ask you.
like the insane asylum.
It's pretty simple.
Let's go back to the whole the crime of the century here about the JFK assassination. Was it an inside job, guys? Do you really believe that? Do you really think that?
I don't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald did it and acted alone. No, I don't believe that. But on the other hand, all these different proofs. I mean, there's been several. We don't have to go through them all, but there are several schools of thought on this, as you know.
Yeah.
Both of you guys know, right? So, but none of them are ever panned out. You know, and all these people are all dead by now. So you'd figure that somewhere there'd be some evidence because there are, regardless of what you might think, there are people that actually trying to find the truth, you know, that would actually like to find out what really happened as opposed to trying to cover it up, you know, and it never happens. So, you know, I throw this out to the panel here. Like, why is it that way?
Is it something?
It's just never been proved one way or the other.
Well,
you know,
I think on this one
didn't do it for sure. The Cubans didn't do it for sure. All those different people that we thought did it didn't do it.
there's a show on Paramount right now. It was based on a book by Thomas Mayer, and this show, it just started just a matter of days ago. It's called Mafia Spies, and what it is about the clandestine plan between the CIA and the mafia to take out Kennedy. And the people in the mafia this is Alan Dulles and the boys approached Sam Giancana and Johnny Roselli. And here again, this is mainstream television. And I think that's what happened, man.
I mean, I'm look, you know, if I had to check a box, yeah, I'd probably check something like that.
Oh, you know what? Let me roll that.
There's no proof.
Let me roll that back. But they did. I mean, who actually pulled the trigger and how? I don't know that. But the idea to do this is a real thing. It really happened.
The driver was the shooter. You know,
I've heard that too. I don't know who did.
Well, I mean, that's got to be the most insane theory I ever came across.
It's my show. So I'm going with that.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. I don't know.
Theory. I love Bill Cooper came up with the idea that the driver did it. And then, you know, if you were stoned enough and you kept watching the Zapruder film enough times, like 500 times, you would go, yeah, I can see that, you know, but, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to be a cold water on some of these things, but I just, you know, they got to make some kind of sense. You know, they got to be, the availability has got to be there.
The thing that I come down on conspiracies, and I try to explain this to people, the CIA was very clever back in the 60s when they came up with this idea, conspiracy theory, because the whole idea was to make people think things are impossible or far out. And if you believe that, you're nuts. Let me tell you something really quick. There are good and there are bad people. And there are people, the worst thing that you can imagine someone has done. Most likely, many people have done it. And just because you can't conceive that it could be done does not mean that it cannot. So it's human nature. There's good and there's bad people. And people will do things sometimes for the least good reason. So when I hear about somebody doing something bad, even if it's someone famous or it's someone in power or it's some trusted person that we are all shocked about, I'm like, guess what? That's just a human being. No more, no less.
Totally. Well, I agree with you completely about that. I mean, and to me also, it just seems like somebody's going to get blamed, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way things are. You're going to have to get you got to find blame. And then when you can't find blame, like the Kennedy assassination, you can't find somebody to blame it on, because right now, the Lee Harvey Oswald thing, I mean, you could walk around New York City or Vicksburg, Mississippi, where I am now, and you could ask 100 people, and I bet you not more than 10% of them would tell you that Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy and did it alone, if they even remember the fact that a guy named John Kennedy was the president. So, like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we get very hot about this kind of stuff when it's happening, but as I said, the news cycle is such that, like, oh, Trump got shot. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was last week, man. What's happening now? I mean, it's just part of this world.
But we are in the internet age now. And so I think what occurred with JFK cannot happen now. So I don't think that this will be allowed to go down the memory hole. Now, they may lie about it, but no, this is immoral. This is memorialized. And now you've crowdsourced truth seeking. So there's all these people out there that couldn't do for JFK what they're about to do for Trump. All of these people, all these independent researchers, all across the globe are now going to examine, footage and facts. I mean, you've just open sourced these types of things to the entire world for the future.
There's one thing I've learned in the past couple of years. I occasionally an old dog learns things that the idea that a picture doesn't lie is definitely not true.
Of course, but
so
I understand
that they can look at a million YouTubes and a million this, and thousands of deep fake photoshops and all kinds of stuff, and it's not going to prove anything.
Mark, it doesn't have to be pictures. It could be a litany of facts and just information and data.
Facts. What's that?
Forensics, for one.
We live in a day and age where we have to be so careful where we're consuming our media, because number one, I'm going to put this out here. AI is going to continue to be a part of this election. That you're going to see news cycles that are going to be sent that are going to continue to feed the narrative of maybe a third gunman, or this is just me putting some stuff out there to say you're going to see stories that are going to continue to come out that are going to be AI generated with, well, it was like you're going to see these things. The narrative is going to be told via AI, and you're going to continue to see it on the behalf of Donald Trump, or maybe not on maybe not in this behalf.
The problem is the generic level that AI composes with. Everybody already doesn't like AI art. And I have the tools that I can create text with through AI. It's always so bad. I mean, everybody. I know, but people are hip, and there's already a pushback against this. I know some artists that will have nothing to do with AI.
AI now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen. I want to cut corners. I want to make my content creation easier. But when it comes out of Descript or whatever, I'm like, wow, that's bad. I can't put that out.
But
Mike, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be like these different grades of so-called content, right? There's going to be human generated content is going to cost this amount of money. AI generated content is going to be cheaper, and then there's going to be all different gradations. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be like, remember the line in Blade Runner when he goes into the snake charm. There's this stripper and she has a snake, and he goes, "Is that a real snake?" And he goes, "Wow, if I had a real snake, I wouldn't be working in a place like this." So like, it's like, we're living in one of the reasons why we're even here talking is we're living in an era of like, it's not such an era of amazing change all the time, because really when they invented the airplane and all that kind of stuff, all in about 10, 15 years, that was a big change too. But the mental change is, well, I'm just saying that the computer is reconfiguring your brain. I believe that's not a conspiracy theory. And the amount of doubt and there's all this crap that these pundit types always talk about, which is a real snore, actually happens to be somewhat true. I mean, there's the lack of like I can understand. I understand the Trump voter really very. I kind of understand, and I sympathize with them. Somebody who wants to know what's what. I don't want to know the book. I don't want to know the crap. I don't want to know your opinion. I want to know what's what. I want a leader. I want somebody who's going to be somebody that I'm going to depend on, whether I like him or I don't like him. I want to be this. I want this leader. So, that's fine. I mean, I don't happen to agree with his position, so I don't support him. But, that to me represents something that's just a reaction against what we're talking about here, where AI and all this kind of stuff, you can't trust anything. But if Donald Trump comes along and he says something, then I'm going to trust what he says. So, I get that. And
well, let me just say this. I want to be wrong. I want to be completely wrong about this. And it will not hurt my feelings. Come on and say, you know what? I was dead wrong. I've seen so much of this happen that I'm not trying to rationalize that I had a reason to believe this, but I do want to be wrong. So I want to be very clear to the audience. I'm not saying this because I'm voting for Donald Trump.
Mhm.
I like Ron Paul, and I would have rather voted for Tulsi Gabbard if you asked the truth, but that's just the way it is. So I want to be wrong.
Ron Paul was the greatest politician because
100%.
he sort of he had 2% and everything, but then in the youth vote, he had like 29%, and I was going, why is that? And then I realized he's for legalizing marijuana. So, that
A lot
was
of
it.
things. Yeah.
A lot of look, he's like a libertarian idea is fine, but I don't think it works for a lot of people. But
And I'm not totally bought into that either. I'm just saying, as a singular politician of my life, that was my guy. But the main point I just want to make is I want to be wrong about this. I really do.
what part of it do you want to be wrong about?
I want to be wrong about the fact that it was a conspiracy to kill Donald Trump beyond the mind of a 20-year-old kid who climbed up on top of a building.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's another one of those kind of things I don't even know is worth talking about because you're never going to know the answer. It's not going to. And if the answer does come out, the people who did it are probably powerful enough to cover it up. So, it's just another rabbit hole with no payoff. So I'd rather move on and talk about this current event of today, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I've got to say that the people in my little cohort, in Blue Land, were about ready to just drown themselves ever since June 27th. When you're looking at this thing and you're going the look on the face of the NPR PBS panel when they went back after that debate, the look on their face was it was like, what? There was no other way. So now the guy's gone, right? This guy's gone, and they'll find somebody else, probably Harris. So, but everybody in the Blue Land is totally energized by this, as opposed to being completely unenergized and more or less. The idea of Donald Trump winning by a landslide was never believable to me. But I feel I still feel he'll probably win. But it's just got a billion times more interesting. I wonder what you thought about that.
I don't know why anybody was surprised. I don't know why all these people are like, oh my God, he's mentally disabled. Yo, he's been like that since he came into the presidency, and you guys have been carrying water, acting like what was right in front of your eyes was not. It's asinine. So now all of a sudden they're saying, don't use any harsh rhetoric. And oh my God, how did we not know that he was? No,
I just wrote a piece in New York Magazine, and they called him all kinds of names. Because
okay, so you're one individual.
He was an idiot. He was completely irresponsible to think that he was capable of doing this anymore. Plus, he said after he won, which he did win, and so he wins. He did a lot, from his point of view, he got a lot of legislation passed. So he's considered a success by some people, right? So not the worst president of all time. So but he knew he had to know that he wasn't capable of doing this, and
clearly.
If he's so upset about Donald Trump becoming the president, couldn't he just say, "Whoa, where we go"?
I think that he and his family have made so much money off of it and protected the legal shenanigans that they've been up to for so long that they didn't want to get out of it. So, and I think that
nobody wants to give up power. Nobody wants to give. That's an axiom. Nobody wants to give up power.
Yeah, are we living in a day and age where, like, should we just call it like politricks now? It's not even real politics anymore. It's what have you done for me lately? It's, what big donors are, are we living in?
I think it's just real politics. I think this is politics. It's
You
just
still
a
think
different
it's
kind of
politics?
politics.
Yeah. It's not like
I mean,
they should
it's the politics of the
apparently-
money donors. I mean,
Right.
it's no different than it used to be. I mean, you don't think that the Democrat or the Republican nominee in the presidential election of 1900 was sucking up to Cornelius Vanderbilt to give him money? I mean, now it didn't used to get talked about. You
Sure.
didn't used to see it in the newspaper. Now you know all about Sheldon Adelson and his wife and all these things like that, and all the loonies that were that couple that was advising Biden. They were like, if you want to call them a Manchurian candidate, where are they coming from? The Duns or whatever they are. These people are just. You don't want those kind of people around your presidential candidate. So these things are. I think it's kind of like it could be a healthy thing if the Democrats, regardless of, they're still Democrats, so they'll probably screw it up. But if they have a sort of a semi-open convention and they choose a nominee and that nominee runs against Donald Trump, that's a much better situation for the state of the country than the one we had a couple days ago before Biden came out. It's just, to me, I mean, yeah, Mike, might feel your side has less chance to win now. That I don't know if that's true or not, but you got to admit that it's just much more interesting now than it was before.
I actually think that they stood a better chance with Biden, and I'll tell you why. Because if we had fair elections, I think Donald Trump wins every time, but we don't. And no, I'm serious, Mark.
I beg to disagree.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. But here's the deal. I think that they had better. I think that they had a better chance. I think that they had a better chance with Biden. But that doesn't mean that she cannot win. In fact, I think that she may win.
Well, I hope so.
I do not. I think that
All right,
she's
well, so we
completely
disagree.
worthless.
But that's why this conversation is a good conversation.
Understood. But the deal.
on one side, you
I
root
think
for
the only
other
reason.
side.
I think the only reason he backed out today is because of money. The big donors have all pulled out, and so down ticket, all the rest of the jackals were like, "Oh my God, if they pull the money on him, then it may affect my race." Down ticket, so they all began to.
What do you think? I'm supposed to have better morals than everybody else? That is not true. As you well know.
Right, but I'm just telling you the truth. That's why he pulled out, not because he felt he was being derelict to the country. He should have done that a long time ago.
You don't know. You're not inside his head. You don't know. You don't know anything.
What do I not
that.
know, Mark?
You don't know why he decided to pull out this particular day. Why did he pull out when last week the same thing was happening? He didn't want to pull out then.
Because
No,
they just kept
they-
coming at him, and the money kept seeking away. And finally, it's just like, I'm going to have to do it now.
I think the assassination. It could be.
Of course, yes, the assassination
attempt and
Yes.
him pulling out are definitely connected. Now they're not connected because somebody made it happen that way. It just became more and more obvious to Biden that he's a losing candidate. So yeah, he's a.
But yesterday he was going to stay in the race. Yesterday he was still in the race, and they were still going to be out there this week, doing things,
The guy got
gangbusters.
COVID. Maybe it was the last straw. He said, everybody hates me, and now I got COVID. I mean, come on, I give up. I mean, you don't know why people do these things. I mean, why are you so suspicious all the time? Why can't you? You're so suspicious.
Mark, why are you so naive? You're too old for that. No, I'm straight up. Quit being naive. I mean, you know all of this.
I don't think the Secret Service, an engineer to hit on the president.
I hope that I'm wrong.
Naive.
I hope that I'm wrong.
If
they didn't, then they need to
right or wrong. But
then they will need to explain all the failures, which are multiple. And as far as Biden, I think he only pulled out because the money had made it untenable any further.
I'm sure you're right. This to a large degree. I mean, you can't run for. Unfortunately, in this country, you can't run for president unless somebody's giving you $1 billion every day, which makes it. And this argument about Trump being against American democracy is just a bunch of malarkey because there's no such thing as that to begin with. So, and it doesn't mean that Trump is good for the country, but he's democracy is if it ever existed in this country to begin with, has left the Elvis has left the building a long time ago. So we know that. We know that.
is this more of a strategy, a strategic move for the Democratic Party to actually start playing chess versus checkers and start making moves that are going to be more of a generational move? Because I think there are a lot of people who may be Democrats who may fear that they're, maybe they are a female and they happen to like the right to choose these types of things. Are we looking at a situation where we're I mean, this is not to be conspiracy theorists, but what the hell are we looking at?
It's a conspiracy show, Mike. Mario, go right ahead.
Are we playing the long game here? As Democrats playing the long game? Are they trying to get back? Because I feel if I was to look at the big picture and what
they're clueless, man. They don't have any strategy. I mean, you're giving them much too much credit. I mean, Republicans, they have strategy. They have. I'm giving that. Last time when Trump won, he was the most surprised guy in the room. They didn't have anything together, and now they do. I'm not so sure. I'm so happy about that, but they are organized and they are together. The Democrats are just a bunch of like herding cats kind of thing. It's unfortunate
because I see it just the opposite.
You do?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, then tell me why you think that, because I don't think that way.
Because the Democrats will circle the wagons around anything. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. If you're on our team, we're all in. Now, in this particular case, I think
exactly the same thing about you.
I know you do. And
isn't that both parties though?
Huh?
Wouldn't we say that that's both parties though? Are we? I mean, you're supposed to rally it behind your guy, right? I mean, but
it doesn't always work that way. But let me just say,
Biden, half the party is telling him to get out, half the party is telling him to get in. So
that started 2 weeks ago. That started like 2-3 weeks ago, after he was abysmal at a debate in which he only represented what he always represents, which is a man who unfortunately is in severe mental decline. And then everybody's like, holy crap, now we're busted, when in fact it was plain to see for everybody. So what happens now? So when we enter this convention, I think it's going to be interesting because...
Are you going to watch?
No, I'm going to be out of the country at the time.
Well, good, because I didn't watch a second of the Republican convention, so that makes us even.
I mean, I'll be watching the news and I'll see tidbits on my phone, but I think it's going to be very interesting because I don't know that I think that it's all sealed up for Kamala. I mean,
I don't think
if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said it's going to be Gavin Newsom, because you've got a guy who's
they don't have enough time for that.
He's terrible. I live here. I know, but that doesn't matter.
I mean, I would have a hard time voting for that guy.
He's going to run. He will run into.
You need to completely change his image and do all kinds of stuff to him, and they don't have the time for that. So he's out.
Right. So apparently, right before this show started, Jen Van Laar, who's a journalist who's worked here in California, I like him very much, apparently just told his people, clear my schedule for the next 3 days. Make of that what you will. So what I think will happen.
Is that what you said? They're clear. He's going to clear his schedule. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think that Kamala and he will talk, and she will offer him the VP slot.
Newsom?
Which then
no way.
Yes,
that's swing state. She needs a swing state. She needs
it's gonna be the guy from Kentucky, man, or
either Kentucky.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just this is what I think, because
it doesn't make any sense.
Why does it not make any sense?
He's not white enough.
Because he's not popular. He's not. The Democrats are going to carry California anyhow. They don't need him.
I could be wrong. But I mean, this. I don't know. Maybe I am.
Maybe he's gonna get a job somewhere in the.
The reason I think you would. The reason I think that you would do this. The reason I think that you would do this is to key him up for a slot for 8 years down the line.
I think you're hoping that happens, but that's
I don't, man. I don't want that to happen. I live here and I see how devastating the state is.
He's a loser.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people will vote for him because he's a Democrat in a nice suit with nice hair.
He's got a nice haircut, but I mean, give me a break. So
did Ronald Reagan.
I'm telling you the way I see
Ronald Reagan had all black hair until his late days, and I'm very envious of that. So, don't say anything bad about Ronald Reagan.
No, I'm just saying that you have nice hair. You have good hair.
You have good hair.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, Michael. I'm going to go against your theory. I think you're going to get 8 years. You're going to get 4 from Trump, and then you're going to get 8 out of Vance. And then there'll be
maybe. I don't know. And I wasn't even a Vance guy, by the way.
That's my prediction.
Vance. I mean, the idea that Trump picked Vance, to me, was his first big mistake in this campaign. Because A, he brings nothing to the ticket whatsoever, just to the base. He doesn't expand the only way that the only way that the Democrats the only way that Trump can win is because he can win the election, but the Democrats can lose. There's no doubt about it. That's the way it works. That's why I see it. So the Democrats are doing a fantastic job at losing the election. There's no doubt about it. So things may change now, but I don't know. So Vance, A, he brings nothing to your ticket. B, he just makes all the people that hate you more. C, I wouldn't pick that guy for vice anything, and I would hire a food taster before I take him, because he's got, Trump thinks about himself as Julius Caesar. If you ever read any plays by William Shakespeare, you know that Jan Cassius is the guy who wants to get rid of that guy so he can take over. And when you look at Mr. Vance there, I see only Jan Cassius, man. He is a rat think from the day one. He's not a responsible individual you want near power.
Do you think, Michael,
I could say that about a lot of Democrats, but go ahead.
What do you think of that, Mike? Do you think that I'm wrong about that?
He's not the person that I would pick. I wanted Tulsi Gabbard for the reasons that you just mentioned. But I know, like, my dad immediately called me up. He's like, "Hey, man, what do you think?" Because my dad watches CNBC. So Vance is an interesting story. He's a young guy he speaks extremely well. I will give him that. He's a good talker. He's an incredible orator, and his logic is sound. That doesn't mean I have to like him, but he also brings an incredible amount of money to the table and a great deal of business confidence in him. He was a former partner with Peter Thiel, who I'm also not necessarily a fan of, but that doesn't really matter. So journalists lost their jobs because of Peter Thiel. And this guy is a gangster. I mean, from way back, and that's the reason why Hulk Hogan was on the campaign thing. Because he's the one that banged Hulk Hogan. I've heard all that, but it still doesn't change my feelings about the whole thing. I wanted Tulsi Gabbard as the VP to neutralize this idea that we have to have a woman or a person of color, all the rest of the bullshit that they're going to pull into it. So he didn't do that. I like her because I like the way she thinks, and I think she's a person of integrity with vision. I hope that he gives her a place in the cabinet. I hope that he gives Ramaswamy a place in the cabinet. Both are people that I support wholeheartedly. So. But I don't know what's going to happen.
So do you think it was a bad choice by taking Vance?
It wasn't my choice.
And do you think that was a mistake on their part?
I'm not going to say that because I don't know. I told you who I wanted, and that's not the person he chose. So,
I mean, it seems like the first unforced error that I've seen out of Donald Trump in this campaign.
Well, we'll wait. We'll wait and see. A lot of people.
Credit.
A lot of people have said that, and that may be true. That may be true. I don't know yet. I'm just going to hope for the best because that's what I got to work with.
You'll see. You'll come back to bite them.
I don't know that. At the end of the day, as you said, Mark, it's the Democrats to lose. I mean, they're down, right? They're down a few runs.
Well, there's more Democrats than there are Republicans. It's always theirs to lose, So and somehow they seem to be able to do it all the time, lose. I mean, so, it's an interesting question, but, I think that people are very, the thing about the abortion thing, you can play it down as much as you want, but that's really a very big issue here. And and people think about it, a lot. And there's a bunch of different things that all this kind of male kind of like domination that you see at the Republican convention, it looks great on TV and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if you happen to like Charles Bronson movies and stuff, but the thing is that or whoever replaced him, but it doesn't really play in a lot of places, and I think that there's always a chance that they could lose. So,
and Mark, I'll take the opposite side of that trade. You can say that what you're seeing on the Republican side is a bunch of male-oriented white dudes, and what we see on the left is a lack of real character. And instead, what they put in is a lot of just virtue signaling. Look, we've got a person with pink hair. We've got a black person. We've got a lesbian. We've got all of this.
With you more.
And
I couldn't agree with you more.
And
I mean,
so
it's just like
so that cuts both
you're
ways.
For a home team, and you feel that they're screwing up. It's like rooting for the Oakland A's. Your team has bad management, but you can't get out of rooting for them, right? You know, because like they're your team. So therefore, you know, if they show a little bit of life, like they have today, they got a new life. They got a new chance here. They, you know, regardless of what you want to think of Kamala Harris, this is if the situation has changed, you know, and you never know what happens when the complexion of something changes. You pull one little string out of a garment, and then all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart, as you know well, you know. So like, you know, this is a change, and I think we got to look hard to see how it's going to play out in the next couple of weeks, and then after the convention. Because if anybody remembers, in American politics, they used to have the conventions in August. They would nominate the person. I mean, whether it was indoor, you know, behind closed doors, whatever. The campaign would start on September, on Labor Day, and then they would run till Election Day, and then they would elect the person. That would be the way it was. It didn't go on for 4 years, every single day, 24 hours a day, the way it does now. So, you know, maybe people are just going to be in a situation as I'm just sick of all this stuff, you know, so maybe I'm going to vote for her, you know, maybe that's going to happen. I don't know if it will, but it could, you know. So, I mean, I think that people are so trained by the way the media covers these kind of things that they want to rebel. It's just the way you feel. You want to rebel against, you know, whatever it is, because you feel it's fixed against you. I feel that the media is fixed against me, and I'm a member of the media. So therefore, I'm going to repel against it as much as I possibly can.
We thank our listeners or viewers that are watching us via whichever platform, Twitch, YouTube, if we haven't been banned. You're welcome to send your comments in via the chat there. Guys, the last time a sitting president did not seek the nomination for the parties was in the 60s. Is that right? I mean, I wasn't alive.
Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
What about Gerald Ford? Did Gerald Ford run against Carter?
He ran. Yeah, he ran and lost.
Okay.
So the was close, but he lost. So but the thing about Johnson, which is really kind of surprising, is because you see these images of him, and he'd only just turned 60 when he made that speech. I mean, how much wear and tear was on that guy? And he died he died within a year after that. I mean, he knew he was done. So he did the right thing. And, you know, I always had a lot of respect for Lyndon Johnson, even though I didn't agree with him about the Vietnam War, of course, because he was trying to get me killed. And I wasn't in favor of that. So, like, you know, but I mean, he was a very thoughtful guy. He did all kinds of stuff that a Southern senator would never, ever do. You know, like pass the Voting Rights Act and a bunch of other things that were really very helpful for people that were underprivileged in this country. And so the fact that Biden couldn't figure out what LBJ could figure out at 20 years younger is, you know, it's on him. But, you know, it's a new day, so we'll see what happens.
Michael, do you think that do you think this was a plot? Do you think this I mean, and not regards to the assassination, but do you feel like in the news cycle, because Mark was saying that this is a new news cycle, so this changes the narrative for your team, right? I mean, do you feel like now you guys are behind the 8 ball?
No. I don't feel any different than I did before, because we all knew that he was going to step down today. I mean, look.
Today, you knew it was going to happen today?
Yeah, a lot of people did. I mean, we all knew it was going to. I mean, this. Look, you put your.
I knew he was stepping down today. I told you on the phone on Friday.
Look, guys, come on, man. This is our job.
It's
our job. A lot of people knew it was most likely to happen on the weekend, and it did. So, I mean, I'm not really surprised. I mean, my opinion is, I think that Kamala is uniquely unqualified for the job. I mean, she was a terrible vice president. She did nothing about the border, of which she was supposedly the czar of it. But she is connected and she is in the place. And so, you know, I don't think she's a strong candidate, but I don't think you have to be.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not in favor of just anointing her to be the candidate. I thought it would be the most interesting thing to do, but the most radical thing to do, is Democrats to go into an open convention, let everybody make their speeches, pick somebody, let them all hold hands at the end, have a hootenanny kind of thing. Like
I think that may still happen. I think there's about to be chaos. So I think the next couple of months, things that you can't even believe are going to happen. I'm actually quite uncomfortable with this period in time.
Why?
So, I think things could go completely off the rails.
I mean,
What do you
haven't they
mean?
already? I mean, haven't they already?
Did anybody
No,
hear of
they're not off the
CrowdStrike?
rails.
You ever heard of CrowdStrike?
Yeah. Well, yes. It's
CrowdStrike.
corporate. Yes. It's this is the interesting topic about this.
Hell yeah, it is.
You're
Yeah,
talking
it is
about.
interesting,
You're
very
talking about.
interesting.
You're
now,
talking
now
about.
Michael. Now
entity-
Michael and I are on the same team here again.
Look. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want anything bad to happen. It's just that we have entered this level of novelty and instability. I think that you could see a market correction. I think you could see another digital snafu like what we just had over the weekend. Some people think that this was a stunt. I think a lot of things could happen that are not good at all. I don't necessarily know that Donald Trump even makes it to the final election. I mean, I don't think they're going to stop. I think the fact that this failed is probably only going to embolden them. So I think that there is a lot of instability over the next 90, 120 days in store for us. And it begins almost immediately.
Are you saying the conspiracy of the Simpsons is what you're referring to? That conspiracy that Donald Trump doesn't make it, as that he's not going to be alive? Is that what you're referring to?
Come on, guys. Everybody knows this. I mean, look, this is a lot of people. I don't know anything about what you're talking about on the Simpsons things. Look.
There is a Simpson. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Simpsons have supposedly
the
predicted
Simpsons,
a lot of
the
things, and it is interesting. It is
There's a
interesting.
conspiracy
But
Trump in there, yes.
but
I mean, it's my job to know about these different conspiracies, right?
look,
All right, I'm knocking it.
I hope that there's not another incident like
There won't be.
incident.
There's no way in hell. There's no way in chance that is going to happen. They're going to make sure that his ass is covered from head to toe with.
You mean like they should have done last week?
Well, that was last week. This is a new week, and this is. I bet you that guy has Secret Service detail that is going to be on point, regardless of who the candidate is.
I hope
Has
so.
to be.
You know what I
really
said?
like
You know what I?
to
You know what? You know what I
I'd like to know
said?
you had- yeah, go
What
ahead.
I said to the Secret Service asset last week is like, if I was Donald Trump or any person of resources of that level, I would hire my own security detail. Whether the Secret Service liked it or not, that's what I would do.
He's
But
too
then that
cheap.
starts to get
He's
into,
too
like-
cheap.
Oh, it's
He's
too
too
cheap.
cheap to do. He's too.
Oh, I think
cheap
he
to
probably.
do
He,
that.
but
No, I mean,
Nothing is more
agree.
expensive
what
than
you
your
said
life.
About what you said about, I mean, I'm really curious about that thing we were talking about a moment ago. Is like, what level of security does a candidate deserve? And if they're going to give it to Robert Kennedy Jr., who really has no chance to win,
right. So apparently, after you get the nomination, you get an additional layer. So the initial layers are the
what is he
president.
gonna get? What's he going to get? And what compared to what Kamala Harris is going to get, so
Kamala
why
Harris
couldn't
will have
everybody get the same
Well,
thing.
she already
No,
has.
Kamala already has some, and now she will have. If she gets the nomination officially, she will get an additional level of security. He will get probably a nominal, especially now that they've only decided to do it after the fact. I think there will be more of kind of just a showy version of security, which.
Well, I think that this is an interesting thing because I wasn't really aware of the fact, and like I know more stuff than most people. I mean, about this kind of stuff. Than that there were tiers of
Yes.
protection.
But
See, I didn't
guys,
like what. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I hadn't really thought about it before.
But we know that the vice president has to have the top tier of security detail, period. She's second in line to the presidency. I don't care if it's whoever we're talking about. The vice president should have full
So
detail.
how much of my taxpayer pays dollars have to go to protecting Robert Kennedy Jr., who's completely out of his mind and has no chance to win the presidency?
Well, he should just get detailed because of his family name, don't you think? I mean, doesn't this
Because he's named Kennedy?
yes.
I actually like RFK. I don't think that he has much of a chance either. But I basically like the guy, and I do think that
story on him, Mike.
I'm sure you did.
I spent a week with the guy.
Listen,
Take it
I'm
from
not-
me.
I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for him. I mean, I mean, when we are talking about the Bidens and the Clintons and these families, and you're going to tell me somebody's corrupt or off the
I didn't
rocker.
say
I
he
mean,
was
look,
corrupt. I said he was crazy.
okay, well, it sounds like a very negative outlook, but I'm not
I
voting
got
for
a
the guy.
negative outlook on the guy. Yeah.
So I kind of like him, but I do think that he deserves Secret Service protection, and I think he deserved it months and months and months ago when he asked for it numerous times.
I'm asking how much he's going to get.
I don't think that much. I think they'll probably give him, like I said, I think they'll give him some nominal lower tier protection. I could be wrong.
But it's just interesting in how they make these decisions. I mean,
it is interesting. I will say this: when I didn't know that the vice president was coming into town, and I do my normal routine here in West Seattle, where I live, and I do my walk, I work out in the morning, I go for my daily walk, right? And I'm like, God, there's a lot of police agencies around here.
they were protecting you, Mario. They were protecting you.
They were not protecting me.
They know that you're a major podcast holder, and
they were checking the route.
Need this kind of thing.
They were checking the route, and I finally figured it out. I was like, oh, so I started reading everything, and Kamala Harris was coming to West Seattle. And I'm like, damn, she's coming to West Seattle? And sure enough, I saw the presidential detail, the motorcade, the whole pomp and circumstance of her, going by. It's not every day you get to see a candidate or the vice president of the United States roll through your neighborhood. And sure I was. There I was. Finally, after she made her 20-minute campaign stop in West Seattle, probably, who knows whose house she stopped at? Nor do I care. I saw the presidential motorcade go by, and I waved, just like anybody else would do, I would think. But I was like, ooh, I'm on the route of where they're driving by, and there she was, within a stone throw to me. I could see her. She was like from me to my camera. I mean, I could see her right there. And I was like, wow, that's cool. It's not every day you get to see a presidential vice president go by the house, your crib or your neighborhood. And that was cool. Regardless if people like her or not, and she's still the vice president. Just like if, Pence was rolling through the neighborhood or Vance was coming through the crib, I'd probably wave too. I'm in for that kind of thing. I like the pop and circumstance of the elected office. I'm going to respect it regardless on who's.
That's the way I feel.
You got to respect it, but gee whiz, I mean, giving taxpayers money to Robert Kennedy Jr. is a little rough.
I don't think. Listen, man, we give so much money away to things that we shouldn't. Give the man some protection, for God's sakes.
I'm not 100% serious.
He's a Kennedy. He should get some type of.
And really, I'm telling you, I don't think it's a huge amount of money. So, I mean, protect the guy. I mean, I don't think it's really that big a deal.
I don't want to see. He doesn't deserve to die. So we'll
right.
let them protect him.
But do you think
none of these people.
Do we
really
think
deserve
that's
to
even
die.
a case, though?
Right.
I mean,
that's the way I feel.
I would have thought that in anyone to have an assassination attempt, it would have been like a Obama or something like that.
When I said earlier, I cannot confirm that I know this for a fact, but I feel like I heard the other day that there were actually some attempts on Obama's life. It just didn't make it.
I can't believe you're wrong about that. I'm positive you're right.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people do. You don't have to be a president. I mean, a lot of businessmen of stature. I mean,
yeah, they have protection.
Yeah,
the armed guards or however that plays.
I think we only hear about it when it goes drastically wrong, like what happened last weekend.
And when it comes to like the assassination on a pope, which has happened, and you look at, unfortunately, John Lennon, probably one of the biggest names in modern day history to be assassinated. I mean,
was that the guy? Is that the guy who did it because he read the Catcher in the Rye?
That's a whole thing that we should do a story on because
was he trying to impress Josie Foster? That was a Reagan guy.
Yeah, that was the Reagan guy, but both of those guys I think had read Catcher in the Rye. That's something you should look at. That's a whole other level
Catcher in
of
the Rye
weirdness.
was a big deal book for me back when I was 12 years old. But yeah, those are kind of.
Our listeners are watching and listening via US Phenomenon. We have a couple on Twitch. Feel free to send your messages or comments. We'll take them as they come in, and we know that there are some Trump supporters who listen to the show, which You would think that they would
I
because they're
thought you were a right-wing show, Marion. What do you mean you got only a few Trump supporters? That's crazy. I thought you had a lot of Trump supporters.
they're probably out there. I'm sure.
I'm the only guy in the whole state of Mississippi that's not voting for Trump. So, like,
Yeah,
I'm
but
like
you're not
John
voting in
Staples.
Mississippi.
I bet you'd be surprised. I think most of the urban centers, urban cities
no,
of any state have a lot of Democrats in them. I mean,
Yeah,
just,
they do. Well, actually,
Yeah.
in Vicksburg, it's like a blue spot,
yeah.
Michael, do you think they should give the day to allow people to vote? I guess that's my question to you.
I think that you should have to show your ID.
Do you?
100%.
You're in a state where you put your ballot in the mail, right? Right.
I'm in a state where you can do whatever you want. Karen Bass, who ran for mayor, at the end of the day on the last race, she was 20,000 votes down. And over the next 2 weeks, somehow, boom, she wins and beats Rick Caruso. It's ridiculous, man. Completely ridiculous.
Would you rather go back to the poll? You rather go back to the poll and punch it in?
Yes,
No,
I want
do.
a paper ballot. I want a paper ballot. I want a paper ballot, and I want ID.
But don't you already
You can
have
do
one?
whatever you want to do, but you should give people a day off from work so they can.
I agree with that.
actually
I'm totally
exercise
cool with
The
that.
idea is you have to go to work and then try to fit this in if you're against mail-in ballots, that's one of the main reasons why people do it. They don't have time to go vote because they got to
Yeah,
work.
But in our state, we already only have like 20% of the people even voting. So, and I'm sorry, a lot of these people aren't working, so
That's a very sad thing.
100% it's sad. I have a friend who's an analyst. He has, and this is one of the smartest people that I know, and he's not alone in this. It makes me very sad. He believes that voting is kind of completely fake now.
Well,
That's another show.
What Bill Cooper said about democracy, he said it was the first step towards socialism. So I never exactly understood why he said that, but
I'm not sure I understand that either. But
he was harping on that all the time, and I think what it means is he's really a kind of person that preferred a philosopher king, like a Platonic philosopher king, because it didn't make any sense, I mean, a lot of people find a big difference between a republic and a democracy. They're two different things, but there's no reason why a republic can't be a democracy. But people seem to think it's an either or kind of situation, which is one of these kind of poli-scientific, poli-sci kind of thing, which I don't really get. Do you know anything about that, Mike?
it's a little bit complex for me. I hear that all the time. I just want people to go vote, man. Just show up and actually vote. And you know what? Put your name on it. I want to know that you're a real human being. So it's like,
I mean, your name on it. It's a secret ballot.
Huh?
Don't you have to sign it?
It's a secret ballot. Do you want to put your name on your ballot? So
No. When you walk in, I don't know what they do to you guys. When you walk in, they check you against.
In New York, you have to sign your name. That's
yeah.
true.
That's what I'm saying. So when I want that,
that doesn't happen where you live.
No, I'm saying I want that. I'm saying I want a continuance of that. I want to know exactly that the people that are voting are legally voting. I want to know that they are citizens of the place that they say they're from, and they're part of the system. Does that not make sense?
No, I mean, I thought you were saying that people should have to sign their name.
No. If that's what you guys thought, that's not what I meant. But when you walk in, you have to. They go, okay, Michael Parker, you live XXX, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, can you sign this? So I'm for that.
I vote for the Communist Party. My name is Michael Parker. Michael Parker. That wouldn't be such a good idea. I don't think.
I have. You guys may not believe it. I voted Democrat. I voted Green. I voted Independent. I mean, I'm not even. I registered Republican so that what was it, 8, 10, 12 years ago, I could vote for Ron Paul in a primary out here, which at the time you had to be of a particular party in order. It's changed since then. And I would definitely say that I lean towards Republican, but I voted for people in most of the parties over my life.
I follow my father's advice. My father told me, I asked, hey, Dad, how come we're Democrats? Why are we Democrats? And he said, well, there's really no very much difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They both take your dollar, but the Democrats give you a nickel change. And that's why we're Democrats. That's what he said. So, I revere my old man. So I just keep doing it. I don't know if I'm right or not.
Here's what I will say. I remember going back to the polls, and we were talking about this, and going back to the poll within the last 17 years, where I would go to my polling station, check my name, sign that I was and then get my ballot. Put either check me, whatever, sign my name, and then I go to the ballot box, and then I do my thing, color my ballot with make sure my circles are all nice, and then throw it in the machine or whoever, the ballot box, as they say, and off it goes. Now, someone who has been, probably very naive. In 2016, I was in Charleston, and I saw a lot of people cry, and I saw a lot of people waiting in line to vote. And I was like, this is wild to see people waiting in line to vote. And I'm like, why has this not changed everywhere? Why is there not a...
Well, I mean, are you in favor of mandatory voting? I mean, I actually wouldn't mind. I'm not saying I'm going to sign up for this. I wouldn't mind. You have to show up. If you don't like any of the candidates, vote blank, what they call white in most European countries. You don't have to vote for one of these people that they put up. You just vote that you're abstaining from this process. The idea that you can just stay home and go, oh, that was yesterday. Oh, I'm so, I messed up. That is just bad for civics. It's a civic misfunction, and it should be. You agree?
I feel you. Yes. I mean, logically, there people say, oh, you can't force people to vote, and you'd be right. But from my heart, I hear what you're saying, and I do feel like it's the least I can do is to actually take part.
The country's defending you against, you're doing a lot of stuff for you. The least you can do is show up for 15 minutes and mark the ballot. If you don't like any of the candidates, just don't mark the ballot. That is just not that much to ask,
That's what I think. And a lot of people say, well, Michael, but you just gave me a ballot with all these people. I don't know who they are. They're like a judge on the second seat of this, that, or the other thing. And
then don't vote for them.
That's what I think. I mean, I can't say that I know all these people, but I try to know a decent amount of what's on that ballot. And I don't miss voting, man. I go every single time.
I think of the country, regardless of how you feel about things like that.
Yeah.
The country is it's not in the best condition that it's been in my lifetime.
Agreed.
And the least that people could do would be show up to vote and make their opinion heard and actually listen to some other views on the other side, just to make sure that you're right, that they're stupid and trying to kill you and all kinds of stuff like that. Just, people are just so lazy, and it's really depressing.
Yeah. It is quite interesting, when we talk about this, the ageist thing, the sexist thing. I was
very much against ageism.
I will tell you that I was talking to my best friend about the situation about Biden, and he said his dad, who is in his 80s, he was like, I think he had a hard time with it. He's like, we're gonna have bad days. We're old. You
can't have bad days when you're the president. The mandatory age for running for president should be very clear.
Should it
70
change?
years old. 70 years old. After you're 70, you cannot run for president. You can be president after you're 70, or make it 75 or do something. But it's got to be some level. It can't be like the heavyweight championship. You can come in there weighing 300 pounds with a big blubber ball. You got to look like an athlete. So you have to, and the Supreme Court is the same way, these guys have been on there forever. They haven't had a new idea in their head for 2,000 years. And you just have to shake the system up, because either side, nobody's happy. People are unhappy. They're bitching about things, and they got to make some changes.
It's true, guys. As we get close to wrapping things up, we've definitely gone over.
We've been talking for hours, man. Hours.
Yeah, hours. But you know what? People are watching. They're enjoying.
Good.
They're still watching? I can't believe that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you got two people going at each other's throats, it's always good to
Mike's a great sparring partner, man.
Oh my God. I didn't know that we would. I don't know that we would ever have this again. Here's what I will say: to have both of you guys come on to take a stance. I think that it's always a heated debate, and it will be, but it's good to see that people can. I don't think to see two people disagree, but you guys still like each other at the end of the day.
Of course.
Oh, well, because we're both Social Distortion fans. That's why.
Punk rock and roll, man.
You know,
Right,
there are deeper things than politics. I mean, come on.
Right. At the end of the day, we're going to see an election unfold, and I think we should do one more show. We should do Election Day show. Oh God, I'd love to see that.
Hey, I didn't bring it up at the show, but I'll just tell you another thing, because this is a show that is rife for speculate. There was a lot of astrologers who told us that this thing was just going to happen this past week, and a lot of these. I'm an astrology buff, and
did it come from Karis?
no, and I'm not saying that because I don't think that she's viable. I'm just saying, like, people, it's something that I'm interested in.
Sure.
And a lot of people said that this was going to happen on the weekend that it happened.
Well,
for reasons that
astrologer.
Huh?
Yeah, what happened to that lady astrologer?
That's Karis. That's Karis.
Yeah,
she was. What happened to her? She's good.
Well, Republicans don't like her.
Republicans don't like
They
her.
like
She's predicting the wrong thing. I mean,
they didn't like her. There were people from the radio station, from the conservative radio station, that did not like her.
Get a Republican astrologer. I think it's a good thing.
She was a Republican.
But most of the ones
That's
that
the trouble with you people, Mike, you're just not. You're never satisfied.
No, most of I like Karis. No, most of the ones that I listened, I used to manage. I used to manage 150 psychics, astrologers, and mediums, and I was.
What do you mean,
Chloe?
They were entertainers, and they have agents and managers just like everything else does, and so it's always been something that's been an interest to me. My point,
I didn't know that about you.
my point is that a lot of this stuff was basically predicted, and not just by a handful. This was seen by a lot of people, and for reasons that are more complex than I can even remember to explain, but it's just something I enjoy. So maybe in the next one, we might include something like that.
Okay, that's fine with me. Bring them, the more the merrier.
Here's what I will say.
Say something.
We were getting a lot of feedback that, unfortunately, she's a great individual, that just the population who listens to this show just wasn't a fan of astrology. They didn't want to hear it anymore. So you have to change. And that's
all right. Can't you get one of those guys who sells gold or something like that to come on?
But that's, we're not like the other shows. We're not selling snake oil here. We don't do that here. We don't sell the snake oil.
No, snake oil. We don't deal with that.
No one needs that. No one needs a little, whatever pills and everything else. Every 5 weeks, we're not doing that. Not here. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate your time. It's always good to have you guys come on and hang out. And I think at the end of the day, someone's going to win this election. We just don't know whose party is going to win.
Well,
anybody, you guys want to?
So anybody want to put a little money on it?
Do you want to? Should we make a friendly wager?
Well, I got to get odds though. If I'm taking Harris, I need a couple of points.
You think she's going to be the nominee, though? I mean,
let's just say I'll take Harris now, without even knowing that she's the nominee. If you give me enough points,
I don't think you need points. I don't think it's that I don't think it's that.
Your guy is going to win. He's way ahead. I need some points, Mike. Come on.
Okay, let me just say this. So, I was doing this other show, and I was doing like 3 interviews a day. It was crazy. And when we had the last midterm, everybody was saying, "Oh, there's going to be a red wave," and I was like, "There's not going to be a red wave." And everybody's like, "You're nuts. That's not going to happen." I was like, "Not going to be a red wave," and there wasn't a red wave. So I'm just telling you.
So you just told me that you know what you're talking about, but you won't give me about 2 or 3 points.
Well, no, I look. I already said that I think that she can win. What I'm telling you is
want
more.
Me to give you points? That's
no. I don't. You guys, I'm not trying to be what's the word, coy. I don't know what's going to happen. What I'm trying to say is, I think that what happens over the next couple of months, we may not be dealing with the candidates that you think we're dealing with.
I think there's as I said in the beginning of the show, I think this is going to be one rump roller of a thing, man. And what it looks like now, it just might not even look like in 2 weeks because
That's kind of what
been
I'm
the
saying.
history. That's been the history of the thing. And there's no reason for it to stop now. I mean, people want, I mean, there's a kind of way that the power on earth, acts wants human beings to act, in a certain kind of way. It's the way prophetic kind of literature works. So I think that what the beast, the social beast of the computer thing and all that stuff and the internet, it wants change. It demands new stuff. So therefore, it's gonna get it. There's
Hey,
gonna be more changes.
let me just throw one more wrench in the machine. What if Harris becomes president without winning the election? Meaning, what if something happens like immediately we're like, no, if you're going to step away from the race, well, then why are you good enough? Why are you competent enough to remain president? So I'm telling you, man, all bets are off. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm saying there's a possibility Harris could be president before the election.
You can't become the president like that way, can you?
I mean, if he steps down, right?
Rules don't really seem to be that important anymore.
No. You got.
We're just making it up on the. We're making it up on the fly now.
Just for.
If he stepped away,
you got to invoke the 25th Amendment, and the Congress has got to vote on it, and that's not going to happen. So therefore,
I hear you, and I hope that we stick to rules. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there.
Wait.
Okay, I don't even want to say this. What if he dies?
Well, then she becomes president.
Exactly.
But that would be the same if that happened to Trump, right?
Vance against Harris. That would be like, who's going to win that one? If Trump dies, does Harris remain the vice presidential candidate? Does he move up to the top of the ticket? That's a question.
You mean if Biden dies?
No, I'm talking about if Trump dies. He's an old guy too. He doesn't have
of course. But I'm saying that Harris could be president before the election if Biden were to pass away.
Right. That's the transition of power, right? That's just happening.
Right. So I'm just saying it's interesting. It's one of those things that's quite obvious, but you don't necessarily think of.
If he dies, yes, that would be. But if he's if he's too infirm, I don't know.
They're not going to invoke.
There must be
no one's invoking the 25th Amendment.
There must be precedents.
But I'm telling you, those conversations.
Roosevelt was not competent to.
Agreed, and those conversations are happening. I don't think that will happen. I'm just saying it's not completely impossible.
There you go. That could be the next wrinkle.
Right.
I mean,
MP. If they were to
which would make her an incumbent in the race.
Yeah. She's already been the president now, so it looks different.
That's what I'm saying.
Who's that good for? Is that good for the demos or the Republicans?
I think it's always good for whoever the incumbent is. It's their race to lose. And like I say, this is just speculation. I don't want him to die. I don't want Biden to pass away. I'm just saying it's not completely out of the question.
Here's some poll numbers right here from if we want to look at these. I don't know if we think that this is even a chance in.
No, it's not a big surprise. Trump is up on everything, right?
I think it depends on which poll you see, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole trick. That's the whole trick to polls, man. I don't really put a great deal of stock in polls for that very reason.
But I mean, I think there are some polls that, like
are more credible than others.
Well, the Rasmussen one I noticed is just always pro-Republican, and then the Quinnipiac one seems to always be pro-Democrats. They have better numbers, So, like, who knows how they do these things? I'm sure they're not. I like to believe it's on the level, but I don't know.
I never get. My wife said one time, she goes, "Why don't we ever get asked for polls?" I get things on my phone saying, "Hey, I'm with so and so. Would you like to, tell us how you feel about this California issue?" Like, I'm afraid to answer it because I never got asked by any poll about anything until the last couple of years, and now it's on my phone, so I don't ever want to click it.
I mean, I get them. I get them all the time now. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, this story, as you were saying earlier, Mark, about how the chapters are being written can change drastically. I mean, the news.
Yeah, I mean, like I used to be a screenwriter for a living. I mean, you can always come up with more plot. You know? I mean, it's like there's always more plot, you know.
Joe Rogan was talking about the assassination thing just a couple of days ago. I'm driving and he was talking to some guest. I think it was a comedian or something, but he was basically saying, it's like, if this was a movie, I'd turn it off because it would just be too far fetched. You know, just the amount.
I think you know, it's like you can see it coming through. It's like just past the first act, the first turning point. You know, Trump getting assassinated. That's the end of the first act. Now, you know, and then now we got this new thing. You got something. You got problem. You know, this new episode.
Yeah.
You know, it's a new episode now. Let's just see how this plays out, and then we see. But we gotta. It's like playing pool. You gotta lay yourself a shot for the next episode. You know, like so you can make the next shot. You don't want to leave your ball out in the middle of nowhere where you can't make the shot. So you know, we'll see how it goes, and I'm available anytime you guys want to talk.
You're a good man, Mark.
Guys, really appreciate it. It's always fun to have you guys talking, you know, BS and go over which conspiracy theory may be of the du jour these days. And I mean, to have these out there for both sides of the fence, I think this changes how the news cycle and elections will be going moving forward, which is super unfortunate because I didn't think that this would ever become a thing.
It's a thing. It's a totally a thing. Well, luckily, both Mike and I are experts on this kind of thing. So,
Yep.
You know, and we still don't know what we're talking about.
Well, and the only thing I would also say is like in the future, man, I want to get to a place where we don't call this conspiracy theory anymore, because to me, it's just like we're critically assessing facts based on something, however improbable another person thinks it is. I hate that term. I hear it all the time, and I'm not picking on you, Mario. It's just
it's just alternative thinking. It's just
for me, it's pattern
like
recognition. After you've seen things enough times, you're just like, okay, I've seen that before. That means this is going to happen.
And who is the person that makes up the so-called major story anyhow? It's just a bunch of bozos on TV. So like, you know, and then when you think of something else, then it's amazingly a conspiracy theory that you have a different viewpoint on something like that. You're not falling into line. I mean, you know, screw them. But think any way we want to think.
Mark, but I mean, you studied and wrote a book about probably the biggest conspiracy theorist of all time. You know, I mean,
well, it doesn't mean I have to agree with everything you said.
I don't think
I found him an interesting person.
It makes him a very interesting individual, and to think that that this book still is, you know, being read by, you know, people of color and people who, you know, sometimes don't always think with the right head. You know, I mean, there's some crazy stuff in that book. I mean, that book.
You're saying that book that I wrote, there's crazy stuff in there? How can you
not your book? No, the other book. No, not your book.
The book was based upon.
In the Behold the Pale Horse. Yeah, totally. Well, that's what makes it interesting. It's really off the hook, man.
Yeah.
But
that's what I think.
A lot of people believe it, so therefore, it's what people believe. That at the end of the day, what people believe is really what you got to pay attention.
On that note, any last parting words, Michael Parker?
I'm going to go eat some dinner, but I've enjoyed the conversation. And like I say, I really don't want anybody to be hurt. So I hope that this Secret Service sorts out their issues. I hope that I'm wrong about everything we discussed. And it was a terrible thing that happened, and it will not happen again, because whether I like a person or not, I don't want anyone being hurt by this process.
Yeah, it should not be happening.
Absolutely not. All right, well, guys, it's been fun. Right. It's been fun.
It's always been fun. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.